everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David, I'm your host. And today we want to talk Ttfa versus FIFA. The only thing, this game is going to be played in 3/3. And I have a panel that's going to help me break it down. Let me take time to introduce my panel. Anthony Clark, welcome to the set, bud.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's always a pleasure to be here.
I'm always excited to have you on the set. And I know it's going to be good. We're going to bash it out, and then we're going to still hug up and be partners, even
That's
though
right.
COVID say you can't hug.
That's right.
Right. Larry Joseph, welcome to the set, Larry.
Thanks again, Steve.
And Narada Wilson, welcome to the set, Narada.
Always a pleasure to be here, Steve, and Clarky, a pleasure to have you again.
Thank you.
All right. I want us to break this down and break it down fact-finding. You know, we hear all kind of rumors and all kind of stuff. So if we can break it down, dealing with the facts, and we can throw in our little piece of hearsay, whatever. But if we can concentrate on fact-finding and see if we can get a better result of what we're hearing and people confusion and everybody hearing crazy stuff and everybody's throwing in the little bits and pieces. Let's be more intelligent than that. So it started off with William Wallace administration got elected. And then it went on to, after 3 months, there was a normalization committee sent in. And after that, the chess match began, right? So right now it's in a court hearing. And there's so much going on. So let me see if we can enlighten the viewers as to what really going on or what we think, because again, it's so confusing. So we're gonna do it as much as we know. And then we're gonna add our little bits and pieces, right? So let's start with the normalization. After 3 months of election, the normalization committee came into our country, sent by FIFA to replace a duly elected administration, at which point I thought, that's when we should jump on FIFA back as a country and say, you can't do that. You can't come into our country and just do something for no reason. But maybe you guys are going to help me to see the reason why and why they did it, and then we're going to go from there. So I would open up this discussion, barbershop discussion, and we take it from there. Who want to go?
Well, I'll just start off, seeing that we're doing from the start. An implementation of a normalization committee is something that is within the, I guess if we want to say the Constitution or the rights of FIFA to do so, which, you know, technically all 211 members today would have agreed to, whether they agreed to it 50 years ago, 10 years ago, or however long they have been part of the governing body of football. If persons had paid attention to it, that is debatable, but it is within the Constitution and within the rights of FIFA. However, FIFA has to justify why they took the initiative to implement a normalization committee. In most times when that has happened, it's been for some sort of wrongdoing, more along the lines of corruption or illegal practices in terms of administrating and managing football within a country. Or, you know, in a very rare case would be when the debt or the control of football or, you know, managing football is way beyond the capacity of the persons or the members elected to do so. By that standard, what FIFA does is they, based on their claim, is that they go around and they find persons who may not have a direct link to football and may be more along the lines of business and resolving whatever that particular issue is within the country. The closest persons we have that experience that would have been Guyana, where they found a businessman who, you know, for whatever reason, his business practices were well and they put him in place. The unfortunate thing, obviously, is within 3 months, prior to the normalization committee coming into effect, the reasons given by FIFA seem not to have been in the public sphere prior to us hearing about it. We were hearing of other issues pertaining to the present administration, saying that the previous administration may have committed some errors here and there, but FIFA never said my reason for implementing would have been because of that. They said it was because of some wrongdoing presently. And I just think the timing in terms of the 3 months didn't sit well with the present administration, thinking that in 3 months they would have been highlighted for wrongdoing or mismanagement.
So Clarky or Larry, why did first FIFA do it, and then why did we not as a country jump on FIFA back at that point and say, hey, you can't come into our country and do that, give these guys a chance?
Well, yeah, let me go because you know when Clarky started, what was going there.
I know.
Well, I can't answer for the country, but as Narada was intimating, the reasons advanced for the normalization committee taking over our local football administration was that because of the debt that Ttfa had at present, FIFA saw that there was no way that the present administration could reduce the debt with some of the plans that they were saying they were going to do, as the case may be. And in going forward, the debt could only increase. And so they decided that that was enough to institute a normalization committee in Trinidad and Tobago's football. My problem with that reason was that if I am to believe what I read in the newspaper, that when the Wallace, the new Ttfa, won the election, FIFA was engaged with them in discussion as to the way forward for local football. And then it's like you went to sleep Sunday night, got up Monday morning and heard that a normalization committee was fostered upon Trinidad and Tobago football. So that is the part that I didn't understand. If it was that FIFA was not in discussion with that committee and then took the decision, even though I may not have agreed with it, I could have still seen, well, okay, whatever. But they were sitting and having discussion. And at no point in time it appeared that if they told the Wallace group, listen, you see what we're planning to do there? It ain't going to work. So we're going to bring a normalization committee. So that when the normalization committee did come, Wallace and them was like, what is this? And they are the administration, we are just the public. How are we to feel? So I was not in agreement with how it was done. We're going to, drill down onto some of the more details going into it, but I didn't appreciate that at all whatsoever.
Let me let Clarky clear up all of that cloud.
First, let me start by what Larry ended with. What you are to believe from reading in the newspaper. Let's start with this Wallace administration. They indicated in the newspaper that they had a sponsorship agreement with Junior Sammy. That was not true. They indicated in the newspaper that they had a signed deal with Nike sponsorship coming into the country. That was not true. So things coming out of the Wallace administration to make themselves look good, I hold a little reserve on that, because what they have done in the past to make themselves look good, and which has proven not to be true, I would hold back. Let's go to the facts. The previous administration came in when they had no audited finances for 3 years. They could not get FIFA financing. The David John Williams administration, within 8 months, got Ernest & Young. They came and they went through the books and they started back to get FIFA funding. They were working with FIFA and from my understanding, working because he met debt there as well, right? The stories are he met $30 or $40 million debt there as well from the previous administration. On top of that, he had a whole lot of contracts which had no paperwork and people were taking his administration to court. FIFA, and I understand that administration, had some sort of agreement in terms of, one, how to make the Ttfa generate its own income, two, how to start to reduce this debt. Some of the measures that took place was getting rid of the under-23 team, because at the end of the day, you have salaries to pay, all right? Getting rid of the under-23 team, allowing the senior team to only play overseas games so that they generate income, and that income can be used to get rid of the debt and so on, and focusing on the youth development. We need to remember that when England did not make the World Cup right 1 year, it took them 8 years before they made another World Cup. For some reason, we feel in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't make this World Cup, we're supposed to be in the next World Cup. We're not even supposed to be or considered to be in any World Cup. So let's come now to present day, the Wallace administration. A home of football was built with the intent of generating income. One of the first things that they did was close that avenue to generate. I just spent my $30 million to give you an opportunity to generate some of your own income and reduce your income, because it costs Ttfa approximately $6 to $7 million a year to house their national teams. So
well, they didn't actually close it though, but go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What they did and what they said was that it was not able to be reopened because of this, that, and the other. That as well proved not to be true, because when the government required the use of it, in 4 days' time, all the stuff that needed to be done was done in 4 days.
Yeah, but
And
let me interject. With 1,000 army men in 4 days.
No, that is not true, Steve. What was required was a connection from WASA to the sewer system. 2, they needed the approval from the fire services, so they needed fire hydrants in certain places. And those were the things that were done. Yes, the army came in and do it, right? And they didn't have to pay a private contractor to do it, but don't say 1,000 army men.
Well, I'm just exaggerating.
Right,
but
okay.
You know what I'm saying.
And then on top of that, you found that this new administration had a plan to open another home of football in Arima. So they were looking to find investment and investors to do what was already there.
Is that fact-finding?
That is fact-finding. We saw documents of that.
All right.
Right? Further to that, they staffed every single possible football team that they could have staffed with decent salaries. Where were you going to get the money? Right? And even though they did that, they said one coach was supposed to get 17,000 US. It turned out that he was actually getting 22.5 thousand US. They brought in a marketing man. The Wallace admin, Wallace said he was being paid by sponsors. We realized that Peter Miller had signed a contract for 25,000 US dollars a month to be paid by the Ttfa.
This all came out after, though.
This came out after. So I'm saying...
So we're talking about why did the normalization, FIFA send a normalization group after 3 months?
This came out after in the public, but it doesn't mean that FIFA did not know this.
How do you know that?
Of course, I knew it before it came out in the public.
Okay.
Right? I knew it before it came out in the public. So, right, you find that their first order of business increased the debt without any hope whatsoever or any avenue of reducing the debt. They increased the salaries in US dollars. We don't get paid in US dollars when people pay at the turnstile to go to the game. They agreed to US salaries for all coaching staff. So they increased the coaching staff debt by about 1,000%.
Well, I have to talk with the coaches next week, so
right.
we will get into that.
So these coaches, so The previous administration concentrated on an under 8 to under 15 program. They allowed the senior coach to come down in each area, so his salary was being used to make sure that he had the program in all the other 8 divisions as well. This administration put a new coaching staff everywhere. They brought in a technical director. They were paying everybody. So from where I sit, I had seen a massive increase in expenditure with no avenue of how I'm going to pay for this.
And that's why
And that's why I believe
the
that FIFA decided, okay, look, you did not come to talk to us about what plans we had going with the previous administration or what is our view on how you should deal with the present debt that you have. You came in and you laid down your own plans in terms and increased the expenditure of the Ttfa by 1,000%. So to end where you ended, Larry, I do not believe what I read in the newspapers, because the Wallace administration, everything that they have said to make themselves look good, or they have purposely said things to make themselves look good, that have proven over and over again not to be true. So if they have said that FIFA came and they found nothing, and I am sure, FIFA is not mad. I am sure FIFA would have addressed some things with them. And then when they left, they saw something else happening. And it was for that reason that they came in. But the Wallace administration came to us and said, but they were here, and everything went perfectly well. They made no... That I don't believe.
Let me throw some gasoline on that fire. Because when they get elected, it only 3 months later, Clarky, 3 months later, doesn't give me a time to do nothing. But they did. They pick coaches, they have programs, there's committee like you would not believe, set up, and all of that. And without money, of course. And now you throw a normalization committee down with people who has no knowledge about football, the business people, but not football business, and all of that. We will pick this up. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll pick this up. Viewers, we'll be right back after the short.
Well, to treat and deal with it in a different way.
I don't agree with that, Larry.
Right?
It also depends on what you came to normalize.
Yeah, but
you
Clarky,
didn't come to normalize how things used to be.
Let me just add this before you get into it. My beef with the normalization committee, they didn't select themselves, they were selected. That's a done deal. My beef with the normalization committee is that when you...
We, from those encounters together, and this was a North-South game to open the season.
So the team might be playing well, as we always say with Trinidad and Tobago.
Futsal did that great for me.
Okay, hey everybody. Welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David. I'm your host. Okay, welcome back, viewers. I said let's throw some gas on this fire. And it really, my gas on the fire is, we bring in a normalization committee, has done nothing. They have not tell us what they plan to do or anything. At least I saw from the new administration, Wallace administration, this is what we're going to do. Normalization committee, FIFA sent down, they just sit there mum and say nothing and leaving for me to figure out what they're going to do or speculate what they're going to do. I want you other guys to chime in on that.
I would be the first to say, I think we've missed for a very long period in time, and this is my view, personally. I think I've said it on numerous occasions. The human resource in football is very much tainted. I think we've seen the benefits of it, and the persons that have lived great lives off of it have tend to do things in a particular manner. But what we've not seen what we've not realized is that those said persons who, in some sectors, we glorify for being persons that were stalwarts and leaders in football, did things what were not necessarily the right way. And in modern day football, information is too fast coming, and you need to be on top of your game when it comes to information and can't stay mum on it. So in a situation where a normalization committee was sent, as Clarkey addressed, there were issues that may have arose for FIFA to make such a decision. We found out after in the press that they did sign certain contracts and deals within the first month, 2 months, but they were coming out every day or every week saying of something that was done. What I believe may have tipped FIFA into sending a normalization committee, if they saw things that were aired or errored or whatever, is that the tone of the conversation that they were having with FIFA or just with the public or putting out there was a little too aggressive. I think, just as you addressed, there was the home of football. Everybody, regardless of what direction the home of football went, everybody knew the benefit it could bring to the country. However, going into the first week and saying that, highlighting all the problems and saying that it can't even be used, I think is a different tone than saying there's a facility, we need to find a way to complete it, to see how we could go forward with it. Coming out and saying that monies were spent and hidden and FIFA may have done something wrong. I even saw an email where, they went out at FIFA and saying that we believe you were in collusion with previous persons. And I think you don't attack that way, especially if at the end of the day you still want to, as you say now, work with them. But what we saw happen is that a normalization committee, FIFA never gives a heads up as to how they're going about choosing these persons. From my capacity, I have even reached out to find out how they went about it, as well as I even contacted my contacts to find out, what would be the characteristics you would look for someone in that? Because just as you rightfully said, I think a business person is fine, but don't confuse football business and business in general as being the same thing. It's not. Football, everybody that has played a part in football, all the stakeholders know of dealing with situations where you were not paid immediately for services rendered. This may not be a common practice in other businesses. And we have to kind of realize that it's totally different. Passion carries people a very long way. And that's why I don't come down hard on someone who may necessarily work for free for a long period of time, because football is stimulated by passion. It's different to a contract or any other business that passion ain't making me drive my truck from here to there, but football would. But I think the normalization committee came in, and here's someone who is not responding to the coaches, more or less for the public who is hearing anything. I probably think the first time I heard the person speak, and they did speak prior to that, was recently with an issue probably 4 or 5, maybe a week ago. If for the last how many months you've been in charge of what is considered the most popular sport in the country and by extension the world, and you don't speak to me at least once a week, and football is happening all across the world and issues are arising, then I think you're the wrong person for being there. And I don't make any apologies for that. I'm not throwing it directly. But I think we have to respect the fact that it is the most popular sport, regardless of if money is being pumped into it or not right now, but people's eyes are glued to it. And if you continue the trend that we're hearing, this person doesn't talk to this person is away from the media, and then you get an opportunity to normalize and bring better to it, but you do the exact same thing or even worse, then I think we're not heading in the right direction at all.
I totally agree with you, Narada. Because how can you be nominated as a normalization committee to spearhead this recovery program for a country's football association that is in total shambles and is all over the place, and then you don't hear anything out from these people for the first week, the second week, within a month? Absolutely nothing. And remember the state of our local football at the time they were brought in. The football was in an uproar. All the stakeholders were in a state of shock and trauma because of how quickly things had changed. One would expect reasonably that at least you would have regular communication from these people to address the issues, so that people at least would know what was going to happen, what were the plans they had in mind, why they were brought in, and whatever. but their communication with the stakeholders, and the stakeholders were everybody, myself as a supporter and a Trinidadian, and even more so those who were directly involved negatively from the fallout. The staff, the coaches, the teams, the players. And you became the representative of FIFA now. And everybody's looking around and we're not hearing anything from these people. As a matter of fact, up to today, we still have this ongoing running battle with the coaches in terms of their payments. And I know most of it is because of the silence on the part of the normalizing committee to say something to these people, right? So I believe the normalization committee went about it the wrong way in being incommunicado for too long of a period. Because in a scenario that we were in, when you leave that big vacuum of space, something has to fill the space. And it was being filled by disgruntlement, disenchantment, anger, and bitterness, because so many people have been disenfranchised, and it looks as if nobody cares, right? So we are just seeing a little bit more taking place now, and I know it's only because of the agitation on the coaches' behalf that you started to get some feedback from the normalization committee. If they didn't get up and do something, what would happen?
And I just want to add two things quickly, Larry, is that even in not having information, I believe there's a way to still pass communication. Because at the end of the day, I believe, obviously, the normalization committee is taking directives from FIFA, right? And there are some things that maybe FIFA may say, hold on, or maybe even say not say. But I believe in any capable person in public relations or any sort of communication sector could come out and still say, even weekly, even monthly, to say, hey, we are here, we are the normalization committee, we have been dealing with some documentation, still awaiting some word from FIFA, or FIFA has advised us to not take this course and blah, 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 and give people something. But to pretend that you can't give people anything when today, WhatsApp, you could send a message now when it reaches 300 people, or you could, simply pick up the phone and call someone or get an interview. The constant no comment and nothing to say, I think, I would always challenge people with saying, let's just take these persons' private business, because most of them are involved in other spheres of life, and ask the question, if I were to question you on your private business and challenge you on something, if you would choose to say no. Because if I go to the person who's heading the committee and say, X, Y, Z is happening to your business, would he choose the option to not respond at all, or never respond to me for 6 months and expect his business to flourish? I don't think that would happen. So don't do the same thing with football.
So there's very little that I can add to what you just said, Narada. I think we both saying the same things. As it continues to unfold right now, the ongoing, I don't want to call it a battle, because it's the little communication that the coaches have been having with them has de-escalated the situation somewhat. Right? But it should not have gotten to the point where the coaches had to go stand outside of our stadium to get into an office to have their concerns heard. It should not have gotten there. You understand what I'm saying? Because the name of your committee is normalization, but when you came in, you didn't normalize anything. And although I had to agree that of course they're taking the directives from FIFA, because the people who were selected on this committee have probably limited information or knowledge about the game itself. They are business people. And yes, football is a business, right? But there are some things, and Narada already went into it, I wouldn't go over that, that if you understand how football business is run, you would have to step outside of just your business acumen on the outside and know how to treat and deal with it in a different way.
I don't agree with that, Larry.
Right?
It also depends on what you came to normalize.
Yeah, but
you
Clark,
didn't come to normalize
let me just
how
this.
things used to be.
Let me just add this before you get into it. My beef with the normalization committee, they didn't select themselves, they were selected. That's a done deal. My beef with the normalization committee is that when you came in and you were told you were going to run the local game from no one.
That is not what they came to do. They didn't come to run the local game.
What they came to do.
Right, and
no, just answer me in a short word so that I could finish my point.
No, you go ahead and finish, right. And I will answer you.
So, let me not deal with the semantics. Whether they came to run football, the fact is they were put in charge of local football, right? We don't need to get into the semantics of that. My point is, at that point in time, all eyes were on you because football is in a mess. Stakeholders, shareholders, supporters looking at you. The least we could expect from you is regular communication to give us updates and new information as to how we're going forward.
All right, and that I don't have a problem with.
So
But
that's just the point I was trying to make.
No, but you said things to reach to that point. And I agree with the communication aspect of it, but you have to go back. First and foremost, we have to remember that when the normalization committee came in, to have things, what did they come to normalize?
Right.
Is it the normal running of football, how we are accustomed football to do it? Did they come to just implement what the previous administration did and just come and pay people? That's not what they came to do. You have to understand that if it is that you are taking this thing as a business first and foremost, that I came to normalize first and the financial issues, not really the running of football. And sometimes in a business, before I can deal with paying the employees, I have to find out where I'm going to get the money from and how I'm going to deal with my creditors and so on to keep my business, then to eventually pay the employees, right? So I don't know, right? With that said, I want to agree with both, right, Narada and yourself in the communication aspect of things, right? We need to also remember that when they tried to access the accounts, the Wallace administration took them to court to say, listen, you all can't access that account. We are the elected thing. So they had no access to funding. Right? Remember that went on for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. No access to funding because Wallace and they went and did a injunction and so on to tell them, no, they can't touch that account. So they had no money.
But there was no money in that account.
Right. I don't know. Right? But again, FIFA was going to send money, and they were going to send money to that account. And the Wallace administration said, well, when that money reach here, we're in charge of that money. And they were saying no, and then I think FIFA decided not to send the money. Mm-hmm. But in the first, right, I want to move back to what they came to normalize. They came to normalize the proper running of football. And to run football properly, you have to have a very strong financial background because football in Trinidad and Tobago is not an income generation business or sport or anything. We don't make money to pay, right, the things that we do, right? It is basically a charitable thing. FIFA sends money. We use that money to run our programs. Football does not make money because the fans do not come out to support football. Local sponsorship is not there. And with that said, if it is that the positions of president and vice president and so on are unpaid positions, what are you fighting for? That makes me think why I have this big fight and I'm willing to show that I don't care if it gets banned as long as I go there. What you're fighting for is not a salary. What are you fighting for? Are you fighting so that you could get FIFA money to do what you are claiming that everybody else did? If you were asked to come and help somebody paint a house, and then they decide, well, boy, telling you all kind of thing about the type of paintbrush you have, and you would say, boy, I'm doing it for free, boy, let me go from here. What are they fighting for? It is an unpaid position.
No, but you're saying, why didn't FIFA just come and work with them?
Again, based on the history of the United Ttfa and what they have been saying from even the election campaign, and they have been proven to be saying untruths after untruths after untruths, starting with the Junior Sammy thing. Based on what Larry said, what came out in the newspaper, that FIFA came and it didn't mention anything like this and so on, I have problems believing the Wallace administration. I think when FIFA came here, they identified certain things that they would have liked this new administration to do. And in that, right, because I'm actually going back on your point you made last.
Okay.
That why just 3 months? I personally believe that it took that short point in time because as soon as they were elected, they as well admitted that FIFA came in and they had a little workshop and so on. For FIFA to do this in 3 months, I believe that they came, they asked certain things to happen, especially understanding the debt from that was there. We understood now what happened. They had contracts with Peter Miller for $25 million. They signed a sports kit dealership that was seeing the Ttfa spending $2 million US before they got one T-shirt free. They saw all these things happening. They were going to try to acquire the Arima Velodrome to do a new home of football while closing down the home of football that I just spent $30 million on. And for that to happen, because FIFA is not mad. They are giving us their money.
Is that fact, though?
But
I mean, that sounds like real.
yes, but we are also, okay, so therefore we are choosing to believe that the Wallace administration, who has proven that they have been telling untruths going along the way, says that FIFA came in, found nothing wrong, agreed with all their plans, and then 3 months later, brought in a normalization.
We're not saying that, but we're saying that those things came out after. And then they actually blew the whistle on a couple of things. They are the ones who blew the whistle on themselves. Say, hey, Wallace did so and so. You're not supposed to. You know what I'm saying?
No, that is not what happened. Those things came out prior, and they were released even before Wallace admitted that he gave Fenwick an increased contract, and he was paying because the narrative was that Fenwick's contract was $17,500. It came out after. The narrative was that Peter Miller was going to be paid from the sponsorships that he brought in.
But this came out after.
No, those
after we normalized.
No. Those
That
things were those things came out before.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we get into the solution. What are the things that we need to do? Viewers, will be right back after the short break.
She's going to be the president of the Women's League for the next 3 or 4 years. So even with a normalization committee, they still have to work with her. Taking out some of these persons, they are club owners, so you're still going to have to work with them at some point, and creating that sort of animosity between them, I think, was the wrong path. However, I do believe in going forward, and I give, this is, Clarky, maybe it might be more towards you, but
we, from those encounters together, and this was a North-South game to open the season.
So the team might be playing well, as we always say with Trinidad and Tobago.
Futsal did that great for me.
Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another edition. Okay, welcome back, viewers. Clarky, I'll let you finish your point, but.
Yeah, so it is hard for me to believe that FIFA, who was working, FIFA's interest is not in any particular administration. FIFA's interest is in the proper running of football. And it is hard for me to believe that because one administration went out that FIFA was dealing good with, that a new administration come in. No, it's hard for me to believe that. Right. FIFA business, because administrations have come, administrations have gone all over the world. And so it's hard for me to believe that. It is easier for me to believe, based on how the previous administration was being run, and FIFA was in Accra with them, and this administration came in and doing things and increased the level of coaching expenditure and whole lot of other things, that was a major difference in terms of expenditure, right? And that, when the first thing FIFA did was come and have a conversation with the new administration. Right. The new administration admitted as much. And it is hard for me to believe that they said that everything was fine and nice and going well, and then 3 months later, they came in with a normalization committee.
Okay.
So the way forward in this thing, I think, With FIFA being in control and controlling the normalization committee, only good could come, meaning that they will find a way to deal with the debt, they will find a way to bring football back to a position of normalcy, but at the present time, we cannot expect football to remain normal and expect us to be going to just concentrating on making World Cup. No, we have to get the business aspect of football right first and then start to rebuild. And I go back to say again that it took England 8 years for them to reach back to a place where they could compete at the standard that they were accustomed to.
Okay, so let's continue down that road, and in what are the solutions, or what would work? Because I see it as though I'm building a house. I know what I want in this house, but I don't have the finance, or I don't have the technical ability, let's say, which wrong word. I don't have the finance. I need somebody else's finance. So you're gonna push me out, build that house for me, not knowing what I want in that house?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
But that's what FIFA is doing.
No, that is not what FIFA is doing either. Again,
well,
you are still going down the road that you believe what the Wallace administration has said.
All right, let me retract that then. I'm old enough to retract. So I'm going to retract that. But why wouldn't FIFA, and I want you guys to talk about that, why wouldn't FIFA come in and work with the Wallace administration through all these little tedious little things? All they're doing, they could oversee everything they do. Just work with them. Don't kick them out. And then now 2 years from now or a year from now, which we really don't know how long the suspension is going to be for, if they get suspended.
But you are agreeing with my point, Steve.
I agree with some of it, and not all of it.
You are agreeing with the point that it is unbelievable for FIFA to come in and sit down, because they did come in and have a discussion, and in 3 months' time, they realized, listen, we came in, and this is more believable to me. We came in, we sat with you, we spoke to you, and...
No, I didn't agree with that point.
I think,
not with that
yeah,
they
I think
came
what he's saying is, and I look at it this way, is FIFA had the opportunity with the normalization committee to respect, as the narrative is, the sovereignty of, they are elected. They were duly elected, democratically elected, and we have the resources, we have the expertise. We could send 4 or 5 people to stay with them 3 months. We could come every week, we could come every month. Right. They have the resources to do so and work alongside them. Right. Because I think what is challenging, and I would go to what my point is in going forward, is when you get these people out, who are the persons you're going to replace them with? The football stakeholders are the football stakeholders of 10 years ago. Some may be the stakeholders in the next 10 years. So it's actually better to work alongside them, because I'm just using, for example, maybe not the executive, but okay, maybe an executive member. Let's use the president of the Women's League. She's going to be the president of the Women's League for the next 3 or 4 years. So even with a normalization committee, they still have to work with her. Taking out some of these persons, they are club owners, so you're still going to have to work with them at some point, and creating that sort of animosity between them, I think, was the wrong path. However, I do believe in going forward, and I give, this is, Clarky, maybe it might be more towards you, but I also believe it could also take away from the past regime as well. The past regime did an excellent job in terms of taking care of what we might say the finances and some sort of infrastructure of football, but neglected the play on the field, which is what most persons said in the media, as well as the public spoke on that. Then this new regime came to play into the hands of the public in terms of getting the technical aspects of football, but neglected or, turned their heads a bit into some of the finances. I believe in FIFA coming forward and you being the body to control it. You can't favor one and not favor the other. I think both parties were very much responsible or irresponsible in their dealings of football. And it should not look as though FIFA came in more aligned to whether it's the previous regime or even the present, because both were not the right way of running football. They should have come in and look like their hands are nowhere connected to anyone, and we are going forward, and whoever is to be replacing should do so after they have settled. But it seemed to look as though they were saying one did it. FIFA came in, they had a good relationship before. But did the public agree that football was in a better state in the past regime? I think we could get maybe 50% would say no. 50% would approve, but 50% would disapprove. Just as today, when FIFA came in, and I agree with Clark, I believe they saw some things. There are things that, they would have been in contact. They saw the jersey deal when it was signed, because that is something you have to send an email to FIFA to say we signed this. And from the day I saw it, I got like 3 other emails from persons outside saying this person was aligned with this deal didn't do well, look at that deal, it's not looking too good. So how could you not, it's almost like you gave FIFA this, you hear the whispers coming and you didn't acknowledge it, and then FIFA makes a stance on it, and then we realize the deal is not as great as you told us. And I think for me, that is where they also have a responsibility that they didn't,
No, but let's not get into those, because I'm not getting into all the stuff I'm hearing about the past regime.
Yeah.
Right? So forget about the stuff we're talking about football and football business.
Right.
That's the way we have to go.
Yeah, well, I think it would mean that the Normalization Committee cannot look as though they have any ties with either the past or the present regime, if your job is specifically to deal with the issues of football. However, I would say, Clarky, that on the description of a Normalization Committee based on FIFA, it is to come in to run the day-to-day of football in the country. Whether the reason behind it may have been encouraged because of a financial irregularity or some sort of personal irregularity, for the maximum of 2 years, they are not going to sit down only in the office dealing with accounting stuff. If a Normalization Committee comes, FIFA still has their games going on and your country is still participating in the events.
No, I agree with
right?
that. Sorry,
So
right. Let me just answer that. I'm not saying that they're just here to run the office. What was transparent before is that they were concentrating on youth development, not focusing on the senior team, allowing the senior team to be an income generator, not focusing on saying that we're going to make the next World Cup and spending a whole set of money behind the senior team. Instead, they were allowing the senior team to generate income for football and focus on youth development.
Okay. Right, so yeah, that would be my point there.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, if we look at going forward, the Normalization Committee is already here. There's a challenge in the court. We're looking at a possible sanction for our local football. That decision will come in a few days, and depending on how that goes, it will have a direct impact as to where our football goes. I am not too sure in my mind if the decision goes against local football and we are suspended. I don't know for sure what the length of suspension is going to be, what is going to take place within Trinidad and Tobago's football fraternity during the length of the suspension, right? Because the suspension would mean there's no actual playing of the game. But is it?
No, we can still play. We can't play.
Compete.
You can't compete.
Right. So basically, within our own football fraternity, the most we could do is probably just play local games, I'm assuming. Right?
And no funding. So how is that going to happen?
And then, but the bigger picture for me, or the bigger question for me, is if there is a suspension, how do we use that time of suspension to try to fix what is wrong? Is it that the Normalization Committee is still going to be running during the suspension, and so that their job specs remain the same? I'm not too sure in my mind how that is going to roll out, right? But nevertheless, obviously there's a lot of things to be fixed in local football. I'm saying that, and it sounds so, that's a normal thing for us who've been playing in the game for all our lives. Okay, but this is the first time we're actually looking at everything being possibly suspended. I would hope that we don't waste the next 18 to 24 months going forward, whether it's the normalization committee or whoever, in terms of trying to put our local football back on a proper footing?
Right.
It says one thing to me, that if we get suspended, this Wallace administration and the United Ttfa were only there to serve themselves. Because if you can allow the entire country to get banned because you feel that you have the right to run football in a non-paid position, and how was my thing? You allowing the entire country to get banned because of what? A salary? You weren't going to be getting a salary. Is it that you wanted to have control of the funds and finances? Is that what you're fighting for? Because if it is that you are fighting for the proper running of football and you feel that you can be the best at running the football in the country, you still have the opportunity to do that. Allow FIFA to deal with whatever they have to deal with. In 2 years' time, it doesn't stop you from being re-elected.
But you got to run through a whole process again, Clarky.
But it was the
It's
same
unfair,
process.
though. It's not right.
Unfair about what?
You can't come into my home, punch me in the mouth, and walk out my gate. And I don't do nothing. I don't kick back.
No, that is not it. Everything that was done is in the Ttfa constitution as well as FIFA constitution. Nothing was done as if it was a right barge in your house.
What is wrong with those two? The best solution to this problem is both of them working side by side, going down, because that duly elected group, FIFA has a right. So come and we working together. I am following what you're saying.
And that right there is the problem. I believe that that conversation took place as the United Ttfa said that they had a conversation with FIFA. I believe FIFA told them what they wanted, and the reason they came in is because the United Ttfa was not doing what was discussed.
I would say 1 minute quickly. I think at the end of the day, and this is from my experience with, the World Cup, for example, they have their prerequisites, and because they're financing it, they tend to want you to adhere to, if not all, the majority. Because if I have to give that same explanation, I would say it this way. The public was not pleased with the previous administration in terms of what was on the field. However, I remember one person saying, allow the president to do as he pleased. This is what he's focused on. And he focused on the infrastructure, the physical building that we have, while a lot of persons were complaining about on the outside. And stakeholders wrote letters to FIFA like rain. They said all kinds of things. However, FIFA approved of the stance that he took, and they supported it. I think in this situation, they don't approve of whatever mannerism is happening with the Wallace administration, and for that reason, they have been hell-bent on ensuring that.
All right, we run out of time, but I heard time and time again the Wallace administration says they can come and work with us. 5 times we sent them, come and work with us. Let us work it together. And FIFA didn't want to. That's
I don't believe
what
anything
was
the
said.
Wallace administration says.
Huh?
I don't believe anything the Wallace administration says. Their track record has been proven of being a track record of lies to make themselves look good.
Okay, and you could take that position, but it's still, they have said that to FIFA. So if they're saying that publicly to FIFA, FIFA should just take it and say, okay, let's do it. Because they said it publicly. No, they can't back down. Anyhow, we have, we should be able to talk this for another day, but we can't. This show is come to an end. I want to thank you guys for being here. Clarky, Larry, Norada, appreciate you. ACTN, thanks for giving us the opportunity. Viewers, you make the decision. We do have a Facebook page, you can check us out, and we do have an email address, fieldofdreamstt@gmail.com, where you can drop us a line. This show is ended. Go in peace. My name is Steven. Good night.